Tying your shoes. Seems simple, right? Everybody knows how to tie their shoes. Right? But could you actually teach somebody how to tie their shoes? And when should kids learn how to tie their shoes? Who should be teaching them how to tie their shoes? Those are some of the questions that we need to answer. I have been a teacher for 12 years. The first 11 I taught at the high school level, and right now I'm finishing my first year at the elementary level. When I was teaching at the high school, I used to joke with my students, the ones that had their shoes untied. I'd say, come on, let's go, tie those shoes. It's the first thing you learn in kindergarten. Turns out that's not the case. So what we need to do is we need to get to the bottom of this. Right? We need to see who is responsible to teach these kids how to tie their shoes. Right? Teachers? Is it the parents? Is it the brothers, the sisters, the grandmas, grandpas? Is it the gym teacher? Is it the kindergarten teacher? Who is it? Right? Who is responsible for these kids not being able to tie their shoes? I hear people talk all the time about how things are different now and kids don't need to tie their shoes these days, and the word that always comes up is Velcro. Well, the thing is that if you do a simple Google search on Velcro, you'll see that Velcro's been around since the late 50s, and actually the first shoe the first shoe company to make a Velcro shoe was Puma back in 1968. All right, and by the 1980s, every major shoe company had a Velcro shoe, and pretty much every kid had a Velcro shoe. So it's not new. It's not a new phenomenon, and I just think that that's always the case of older people, older generation, or it's complaining that these kids nowadays, they don't have to tie their shoes. I had to tie my shoes. And, Velcro's ruined it. Right? It hasn't. I mean, it's obviously an easy way for parents to cop out and say, you know what, here's a pair of Velcro shoes. I don't really have time to teach you how to tie your shoes. It is a problem, but it shouldn't be the major reason why kids aren't learning how to tie their shoes these days.
We the people.
I had originally planned on putting in some videos of interviews I did with teachers in my school and some of the directors of 2 daycare centers that my son has attended. But the teachers in my school were very reluctant to do an actual video interview. And after a while I started to get the sense that they didn't want to really be portrayed in a bad light, and that somehow I was attacking their teaching. And I actually tried one, and what I got was essentially interview answers. They weren't very real, and I knew that they thought differently about the subject. So once I knew I wasn't going to get them on camera, I would just casually ask them questions, and I found that was how I would get more genuine information. And the overwhelming attitude that I got from the teachers at my elementary school is that it's somebody else's job to teach tying their shoes. The kindergarten teachers say it's the parents' job or the preschool's job. The first grade teacher thinks it's the kindergarten's job. The second, third grade teacher doesn't have time for that because they got to prep for state testing. So pretty much it was pass the buck. And I heard this a lot when I asked why a certain child still doesn't know how to tie their shoes. The teacher would say, "Oh, it's sad, isn't it?" I never heard him say, "Oh, I know, but we're working on it. We're really trying, and they'll get it." So I never heard that part, and it was sad, but I wasn't shocked. And I did go to the 2 daycare centers, and essentially the director and the teacher said the same thing, that they touch on it, but it wasn't really a part of their curriculum. And the funny part is I've talked with a few of the teachers at different times, and they would tell me how tough it is to keep 2- and 3-year-olds constructive all day long. And I just thought in the back of my mind, you could spend half the day teaching tying their shoes. So the overwhelming theme of my conversations with the educators or directors or preschool, healthcare or not healthcare, daycare centers, was pretty much that it's not important to them. So they'll let somebody else teach it. So that's pretty much what I got from them. An example of a teacher page that mentions tying shoes. It's, you see here, Mrs. Steele's kindergarten class, and she has a whole bunch of information on here about the class schedule, newsletters, and right down here, learn how to tie your shoes. And when you click on there, it doesn't really say anything about what their expectations are about it. When I first looked at it, I said, oh, that's nice. They have some songs and poems and some helpful tips, but doesn't really go into any actual instructions about what you need to do and how you go about actually teaching your child to tie their shoes. And it actually looks pretty confusing. And there's nothing about that they're actually going to do a lesson in class about tying shoes. Another kindergarten class that has a lot of information on their website says right here that their kindergartners have been learning how to tie their shoes at home. I'm not sure how they know that, but I guess they're just assuming. And they want to reward the kids who know how to tie their shoes by having a shoe tying wall of fame. But right here is interesting. It says shoe tying is a skill learned at home. Okay, we want to encourage this skill since it's such an important one for kids to learn, but we're not going to teach them. Right? You have to teach them at home. We'll reward them at school, but we're not going to teach them. Right? I think that's kind of doesn't really make sense to me. They do give, some of the standard nursery rhymes and poems that can be used to help tie your shoes, but again, we're not going to do it at school. You need to do it at home. Apparently, the kindergarten teachers don't have enough time. Here's a site I found that got me a little excited right away because it was from a PE teacher, and I started reading. I said, all right, well, she's probably going to get into it pretty good. Talks about PE and what they need to do and their expectations, and then it says down here, parents to check the PDF file about shoelace tying. Helps with pictures. I'll show you that in a second. Gives her preference of what to use, the loop-to-loop bunny ears. And then just says practice, 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 make sure the shoes fit. And then again, we're not going to do it. I'm not going to show it to them. We're not going to practice it at school. You need to practice it at home. The handout that they send, or to click on the PDF file, is actually really informative. Gives you different steps and tells you right here that the difficulty is going to be very challenging, which it is when you first start, especially for parents to start teaching. And this one goes into, it actually has the pictures of how to start and the loops and pulling it under and through, and I like the handout, I really do, but I wish that the teacher would kind of go into it a little bit more in class and say, you know what, we're going to practice it for the first month, and hopefully they get it and we can practice a little bit more as the year goes on. But again, I don't see anything in here that says we're going to help them out at school. This all needs to be done at home. Don't agree with that. Here's a newspaper article from the journaltimes.com. Fewer kindergartners learning to tie their shoes or zip their coats at home. And pretty much it's talking about kindergartner teachers complaining that kids come to school not learning or not knowing how to tie their shoes or zip their coats on their own. I agree to an extent with them that the kids should know that before they come to kindergarten. But as a kindergarten teacher, I still think it's their job to at least touch on it and do a lesson about it. The part that starts making me mad is right here where it says the kindergarten teachers say the missing skills come from societal changes and the presence of different products on the market. All right, that means Velcro. And I could just hear him saying right now that it's things are different now, and we didn't have Velcro when I was a kid, so we had to learn to tie our own shoes. All right, you know what? You need to stop that and stop complaining about it. And right here it says, literally says they try not to take up precious class time with lessons on laces and zippers. I don't even know how to explain that for kindergartners. You can't take up precious class time with a lesson about laces and zippers. All right, it's crazy to me, and again makes me mad that for a kindergarten teacher to not even touch on it is absolutely amazing. But that's all I saw when I was researching my topic. Here's a case that I think a teacher went a little too far. The website is the Yeshiva World News, and this is a chat room where the first thread is by a Brooklyn teacher, and he or she says that it's unfair that teachers have to spend time tying shoes in class or in school. I don't know what the teacher was thinking putting this online, putting this into a chat room, because the only thing that can happen is what happens here is that people are going to get upset and people are going to fire back at you. I don't agree with the teacher to put this online, and you know what, it kind of is your job to actually tie them because it is a safety issue. Okay, it may not be your job to teach them from what we're doing here, and what I'm trying to do is to change that. But if there is a child walking around the school with their shoelaces flopping around, it is a safety concern. Whether it's in the gym or not. Obviously, for me in the gym, it's a huge safety concern. But we do need to tie their shoes if somebody's walking around with them, or at least ask them, can you tie your shoes? And if they can't, then we have to do it. But the banter back and forth was very, very interesting, and again, I think that the teacher went about this the wrong way, and probably should have talked to her administrators, because I have a feeling that the administrators talked to this teacher after this came about. But again, you know what, it is your job, if the shoes are untied, to tie them because it is a safety concern. But you need to go about this a different way.
Looks like you could use a little help there, partner.
This website, momseveryday.com, is a site that mothers go on and share their stories, tell their stories about their kids in hopes that they can help out other moms. And this particular mother is talking about her 6-year-old that still cannot tie their shoes. She admits that she hasn't sat down to teach him yet. She finds it difficult because she's left-handed and he's right-handed. So she at least acknowledges that. The interesting part is that she says that his school requires non-tying shoes for children who cannot tie their own shoes because the teacher can't be tying 24 kids' shoes all day long. So hold on. He can't tie his shoes because he can't tie shoes to school because he can't tie his shoes. I agree with her. I think that this is just crazy. I see this too much when I was doing my research, that schools actually make rules like this instead of, as a principal, saying, you know what, we're going to teach these kids how to tie their shoes. Or somebody is, whether it be the kindergarten teachers or the gym teacher. I'm fine with that. I think that a principal needs to make that statement in an elementary school. Tell your kindergarten teachers, you're going to do this for the first month or first 2 weeks, whatever it is. And, we're going to have these kids tie their shoes. We're not just going to pass the buck and say, forget it, just wear Velcro and, figure it out at home. It just makes me mad every time I see this, and that a school would actually make a rule like this, that you can't wear, tied shoes if you can't tie your shoes. Doesn't make sense. A lot of people have asked me, what's the big deal? Why do you need these kids to learn how to tie their shoes? For me, as a PE teacher, as a gym teacher, it's a huge safety concern. These 7 and 8-year-olds running around, and they don't know how to control their bodies as it is, and to have their shoes untied, they're going to slip and fall and hit their head all the time. Actually, it's a big safety concern throughout the entire school. But the other thing that it does is if a child can tie their own shoes, it gives them a sense of self-reliance. And I want to show you an article by Dr. Robin Silverman that talks about this. Here's the Dr. Silverman article, and like I said before, it's self-reliance. is the biggest thing that helps with kids tying their shoes. It says teaching children how to tie their shoes is one way to help young children learn self-reliance. When they learn self-reliance through shoe tying, they may be apt to try other things on their own and develop into more independent, capable, and competent children, teens, and adults. This is a perfect example of why I think they need to learn this, and it shouldn't be just brushed aside by teachers and parents, because it can be frustrating, and as far as being in school, it can be actually embarrassing. You want to stay away from the bullying aspect of school, and when kids are in first and second grade, if you can't tie your shoes in first and second grade, you might actually get made fun of or feel kind of left out. And self-reliance, I think, is a huge factor in a first grader. And being able to do something on your own will give you a sense of accomplishment, and like it says here, it will have you allow you to try other things and develop a more independent person. So I think this article is dead on as far as why kids need to learn how to tie their shoes. So which way is the best way to teach kids how to tie their shoes? There's a bunch of different nursery rhymes that we've seen on some teacher sites, and there's some websites that are actually designed to help teach kids how to tie their shoes, and we'll take a look at those at the end. But I found a video that a YouTube user posted, and I think this way is the easiest way to at least start to teach kids how to tie their shoes. It's the version I'm going to use when I do it in my lesson next year. But it's very interesting. It's very simple. But you know what? I'll let her explain it since she's the one who posted it.
But I recreated this little song to teach my niece and nephew how to tie their shoes. They're 3 and 4, and it worked perfectly. So I just decided to create a YouTube video to show other parents out there who might be having a few issues teaching their itty bitties how to tie their shoes. The song is to the tune of Sarah Jacques, and it's really easy. I'm going to be using my Punk Rose shoes, and all you have to do is tie the shoes. So you start with your strings and you simply sing. Hands are dancing, then crisscross, then crisscross. One of them goes under, then pull through, then pull through. Then you have the second part of the song where you create your bunny ears. And you sing it again. Bunny ears are dancing, then crisscross, then crisscross. One of them goes under, then pull through, then pull through. And you have nicely tied shoes. Now if you want to teach your itty bitty how to double knot, all you have to do is sing the bunny ears part again, because you already have your bunny ears and they'll be tying shoes in no time.
So what did we learn? We learned that kids tend to learn how to tie their shoes at different ages, usually between 4 and 8. Right? We learned that some teachers really aren't taking the skill very seriously, and we need to change that mindset. As a parent myself, I know that I'm going to try to teach my son how to tie his shoes before he enters kindergarten. He'll at least be introduced to the skill, and hopefully his teacher will help him with it. All right? But the biggest thing that we learned is that teachers actually do have time to teach their kids how to tie their shoes. All right? Somebody in the school needs to take it seriously, because it is a safety hazard. You can't have kids running around or walking around school with their shoes untied. All right? So you know what? If the classroom teachers aren't going to take it seriously, then I will. Okay? I'll teach your kids how to tie their shoes.
You too can tie your shoe. This is all you have to do. Take one string in each hand. Now tie them together, I know you can. Take one string, make a loop with the other string. Loop the loop, Take